Greetings, everybody, and welcome to The Shakespearean Student. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode. I'm very pleased to announce that I will be playing Humber, the Scythian emperor who tried to conquer England in a very special adaptation of the Elizabethan play Locrine in August of 2026. I'm doing this as part of the Fringe Festival for the Orange Mite Theater Company. But I'll get more to that later. Again, thank you very much for clicking on this episode, because I'm pretty reasonably sure that you probably don't know who Locrine is, what Locrine is, and who Humber is. So I thought I'd guide you through that. We'll talk about the play, we'll talk about the character, we'll talk about his speeches, what makes them compelling, and also why, strictly speaking, this is not Locrine. It is an adaptation of an Elizabethan play that's one of the most unique plays I've ever seen, and certainly ever been a part of. So, what is Locrine? Locrine, the source material for this adaptation, is an Elizabethan play first published in 1595, whose author is, sadly, lost to history. If you go to my website, you can see a little bit more about the details of the play and how some people think that it's a long-lost Shakespeare play, but most scholars disagree. The play is a mythologized history of the founding of Britain, which the play calls New Troy. So what that means is the play is a retelling of the founding of Britain, one that has very little basis in fact. It's sort of like the American myth of Thanksgiving, or the notion that Columbus proved that the world was round by discovering America. These are stories that we tell ourselves as a country, but they have very little basis in fact. Which is why our director has welded together the Elizabethan play Locrine and traditional Mexican-American stories. Stories that represent the natural world and represent the creatures that are indigenous to the land. And the effect is that it is telling basically a story that can be read two different ways. The first is sort of like a Iliad-like story of two different people fighting to control land. And the second is a tragedy about how a beautiful land was fought for and lost and destroyed by invading colonizers. And my character, Humber, is the main antagonist who is responsible for a lot of that corruption and death and destruction of the human and natural world. So in the original play, he's referred to as a Scythian emperor. Without getting too far into it, the Scythians were a nomadic group of horse warriors who conquered regions in a great deal of Europe, but never actually got to England. He's portrayed as a threat to Locrine and his brothers, who are trying to become the first kings of Britain. When we first meet him, Humber is very much comes in very much with the energy of a colonizer. At length we are arrived in Albion, but I will frustrate all their foolish hopes and teach them that the Scythian emperor leads fortune tied in a chain of gold, constraining her to yield unto his will. Like I said, Humber's main concern is not to survive, not to build a homestead. He is very much an invader who wants to take the land, strip it, mine it for resources, especially gold. If you go to my website, you can see that I actually based certain elements of the character on Hernán Cortés, the first governor of New Spain in the Americas, who was notorious for stealing and imprisoning, enslaving, and murdering the indigenous people of Mexico and defeating and subjugating the entire Mexican empire. And I think that this speech very much reinforces that mentality of conquest. Hubba, go take as many lancers and light-armed knights as may suffice for this enterprise, and place them in the grove of Caledon with ease, when as the skirmish doth increase. Retire thou from the shelters of the woods, and set upon the weakened Trojans' backs. For policy joined with chivalry can never be put back from victory. I should have mentioned that Humber is not just talking to his soldiers, he's talking to his son, Hubba. It is interesting that for the first part of the play, Humber shows very little interest in his son as a son, and more his skill as a warrior. He only shows praise and love to his son when his son brags about how he's going to defeat Locrine and his brothers in the field. You'll also notice that this, what Humber calls policy, could also be called blatant disregards for the rules of war and treachery and needless slaughter. But unfortunately, it works, which is why in the next scene, Humber is unbelievably confident and almost sickeningly proud of himself. We are retired with joyful victory. The slaughtered Trojans, sweltering in their blood, infect the air with their carcasses, and are a prey for every ravenous bird. And now, brave soldiers, for this good success, carouse whole cups of Amazonian wine and cast away the clods of cursed care. Now let us march to abyss silver streams that clearly glide along the champagne fields and moist the glassy meads with humid drops. Sound drums and trumpets, sound up cheerfully, sith we return with joy and victory! Like all tragic characters, Humber has a severe reversal of fortune. In Act 4, he loses the battle with Locrine. His son is taken, presumably killed, and Humber himself is forced to flee the battlefield. And I interpret this next speech as very much Humber is disgusted and furious. He's furious with himself, he's furious with Locrine, he's furious with fate, fortune, God. He just wants to let his rage out because he thought that he was in control. Some powerful spirit instruct the kites and ravens to be thy nurses. Wolves and bears, as they say, casting their savageness aside, have done like offices of pity. May they do so for Hubba. Where might I find some desert wilderness where I may damn, condemn, and band my fill the heavens, the hell, the earth, the air, the fire, and utter curses to the conclave sky, which may infect the airy regions and light upon the Briton Locrine's head. Come, fierce Erinus, horrible with snakes. But why comes Albanac's bloody ghost to bring a corsive to our miseries? Some say that ravens foster forlorn children, though whilst their own birds famish in their nests. Oh, be to me, though thy hard heart say, no, nothing so kind, but something pitiful. Humber's speech is a massive piling on of anger and rage, only stopped when he sees the ghost of the man he killed in the field, Albanact. one of the brothers of Locrine and ruler of the Welsh. Humber's sigil on his shield is a crocodile. He's referred to as crocodile-like, and if you haven't noticed, I've put sort of a reptilian flair to the way I delivered his lines in the earlier acts. But I think that Humber is at his most beast-like in Act 4, Scene 2, where the battle lost, the river actually dries up, the one that he led his troops to before, and now he is not only sad and forlorn, he's also starving and dying of drought. It's as if the natural world is paying him back for his reckless destruction. What basilisk was hatched in this place where everything consumed is to naught? What fearful fury haunts these cursed groves where not a root is left for me to eat? Hath fell Alecto with envenomed blasts breathed forth poison in these tender plains? What? Not a root, no fruit, no beast, no bird to nourish Humber in this wilderness? My very entrails burn for want of drink. These foul, accursed groves afford no meat. The gods, the hard-hearted gods, yield me no meat. Was ever land so fruitless as this land? Was ever soil so barren as this soil? No. Even the climate of the torrid zone brings forth more fruit than this accursed grove. The iron-hearted furies armed with snakes scattered huge hydras over all the plains, which have consumed the grass, the herbs, the trees, which have drunk up the flowing water streams. Long have I lived in this desert cave, with eating haws and miserable roots, devouring leaves and beastly excrements. Caves were my beds, and stones my pillow bears. Fear was my sleep, and horror was my dream. For still I fought at every boisterous blast. Now Humber, Locrine comes, now thou must die. Humber loves using classical mythology in order to explain his suffering, and it goes even further than this, but point is that he is using the grandest metaphors he can think of to explain how this is a totally unique form of suffering. I don't want to give away the ending of the play, but let's just say that Humber gets what he deserves. And that, coupled with the beauty of the speeches and the uniqueness of the concept, is why I've enjoyed playing this part. And if you can come out to see it, I think it'll be very enjoyable for those of you who come to see it as well. Tickets are available at orangemite.org. Thank you for listening. Next time I will be talking about my other part in the play, which could not be more different than Humber, the mythical founder of Britain, Brutus. Until then, thank you very much. Consider supporting me online, signing up for one of my online classes, and share, like, comment, and subscribe.